Good afternoon, Professor.
Good afternoon, everybody. How's everybody doing?
Yeah, it's Monday. I
Ah,
don't know if anybody else works in education, but deep sigh.
yeah,
It's a
right. Because today
madhouse.
today was the man day, then the
Professor,
students. Yeah.
Professor,
Yes, Caesar.
I
What's
don't know
happening?
if you got my email, but I told you that I just got out of work and I was in traffic and
Okay.
I'm driving at the moment.
All right. Well, be careful. Pay attention to the road. All right. So let me just meet you. So all right. Somebody's trying to speak, but I think we're getting a lot of static. Right. So, so your professor is wrecked. I'm gonna say that much. One of the things is that we are, so I think I sent an email
Sorry,
very late.
Professor.
Okay. I sent an email very late last night because many of the things that we do as professors is not only teach, but we serve on committees. We do a lot of work at the school, and I'm on a committee that's searching for a new professor. So I had to review 255 resumes. And originally we were supposed to finish them by Friday, but I got a text over the weekend saying we needed to finish it by Monday at noon. So that swallowed up my entire weekend and it just sent me back. And I thought I could be a Superman. And then we were in the meeting today right until like 20 minutes, 10 minutes before class, before I came in. So I apologize that I'm behind on things, but I did in a little tiny break today. I responded to a bunch of the thesis, and at the end of it, I responded to the rest of the ones. So if anybody who sent their info in, it's here. And that's why I said just put a pause, get that done, and we'll regroup today. And so I psychologically need to regroup. So I'm making the last final adjustments for I think all of you. And I don't know if I did it or if I didn't do it. I kind of lost track. But here we're getting back on track. So I want to do today is we want to finish what we started on Wednesday. So we have one more. Want to hear from one more poem. I'm going to review the poems that we read last week when you were in groups. So last time we met, I put you all in groups. You had an opportunity to review some poems and talk about. We talked about two of them. We ran a little late because we got into it, but there was one more poem that we wanted to review, and I wanted to wait until today. I believe your essay is due on Wednesday in the evening, right after class. I'm going to move that deadline a little bit. So those of you who got started, great. Those of you who didn't, don't be like, oh, good, now I can wait. Get started on it. You've already started. So most of you, I know Mabel and several other people said that the thesis statement they submitted is a thesis that they want to do for their paper. So that is perfect. And most of you were spot on. Sometimes I made a little bit of corrections on them, but I'll talk about that in a moment. So I'm going to move the deadline from Wednesday to Sunday. Okay, so you'll have until Sunday to submit because I want to go over some stuff today. I want to finish the poetry today. And I want us to leave today and come back on Wednesday. If you have any questions, that we answer them between today and Wednesday, and that we're not here asking questions and then the papers due that night, so that because I know how our lives can be. So literally, I'm still going through it. Let me just show you. These were the pages of my notes that I was going through. You can't see them because it's blurry. Oh, it keeps going. It's ridiculous. It's insane. I think I think I'm in shock. I'm traumatized from the experience, but I'm here to be with all of you. So I'm happy to be
You
here.
need
So
some wine, Professor.
I know.
Yeah,
After class, I might, but I do have some more stuff to do after this class. So probably later. I'll just listen to some jazz and chill out. Maybe even take a little bath. bubble baths are my thing. So I'll tell you that. So back to us. So what we will do is that. So let me speak a little bit about, we're going to go to the final poem in a minute. So let's speak about the paper. And so, so most of you are on a good track and have started, have gotten the good thesis statement. One of the things we can do with the exercise, if you would like to, also because I don't want to add additional things, but I think one of the exercises that you can do for Wednesday, and we can talk about this, is that you have written about theme and subject, and some of you took the some of you did the intro, which was wonderful, and also have your thesis statement related to your theme and subject. So if you wanted to, the final piece would be a conclusion. So by tomorrow will be great, by tomorrow night you can do it, but we could, put it all, you can put your pieces together, right? Some of you switched gears and found decided to pick a different poem from the one you did with your exercise and theme and subject. And I said that was perfectly fine if you want to do that. So to be clear, I would love for you to look at your theme and subject for Wednesday, right? For Wednesday's class. And for you to work on putting the pieces together. So you've got your theme and subject paragraph, right? To write a conclusion to that, right? And then to write an intro with including your thesis statement. Okay, so that you would have the intro, the body, which you've basically done, and the conclusion. You would have done the three pieces, at least of the essay. So I have a question. Have I gone over the formatting for the first page in the class? How to format the first page with MLA?
No.
No. Okay.
Nope,
So that's the other thing I have to do today. So I have to do that, and I have to, and we have to finish the poems from last week. So let's Tarzan swing from last week to this week. And last week you were divided in groups, and you discussed a poem called, let me just get them up. The first one was Essex Hemphill's, a poem by Essex Hemphill, and it's opening up right now. For My Own Protection by Essex Hemphill. And I'm just going to read the opening of it. It says, I want to start an organization to save my life. If whales, snails, dogs, cats, Chrysler and Nixon can be saved, the lives of Black men are priceless and can be saved. Right? That was the opening, just to refresh you on that poem for those of you who were in that group. And we discussed a bit about it. We discussed about the ideas of, that Essex Hemphill wrote this poem in the 1990s, and it was talking about things that deal with basically the treatment, right? The value of Black men, right? The idea of Black Lives Matter. We understand that because it's a concept or a slogan or a movement that is happening. But in the context of that, of something that matters, right, is something that is important, right? So that the lives of Black people are important, right? They're not disposable. They're not less than human, because if we understand our history, right? There was a time in this history that a person who was Black was not considered a full human being, right? They were only considered like 2/3, like they were not a whole person, right? And so these ideas permeate over history and over time, and they manifest in the way people treat each other. And those are the issues with racism and sexism and homophobia and all those things, is how do we treat each other as people? So the idea of Black Lives Matter is like the lives of Black people, the people who are Black, all right? And we're saying Black specifically, but Black in the metaphorical sense, meaning a person of color, right, matters, is important. So Essex Hemphill was writing about this in the 90s. People have been writing about this forever. Martin Luther King's entire movement was about this as well, like in the 50s and 60s, right? So we're talking about, that there's a long history of this conversation and this movement. And I will say also progression, right? Because there is progress that happens, right? And it's not solved, but there's certain levels of progress, but we shouldn't rest on the progress that exists, because we know that there are systems that can reverse some of those progressions, right? Some of those rights and things that we've achieved, there are mechanisms that could be to reverse them. So that's a lot to talk about that one poem, but we talked about that. The other poem that we talked about was a poem called
Like you
Curly.
mean politics, professor?
Say
Could be
again?
one of them. You said there's mechanisms that can
Reverse
like
it.
politics would
Yeah.
be one of them.
I'll give you a quick example, right? So part of it, the Supreme Court right now has a majority that is more conservative, right? That kind of sides with different ideas.
Mhm.
Than and so one of the things that is up, right, that we felt the Supreme Court ruled on was a woman's right to choose, right? And so right now, and that's an idea that we've thought about as a society, they've debated about, and then a decision was made that yes, women have the right to choose, right? And so in Texas, we know um, that restriction was that decision was constricted again, right? So if you thought that we checked it off, the box was done, we're good, we can move on as a society, understand it's important to be aware and active because those rights could be reversed, right? And so that's an example of something that is being chipped away, right? Ideas of, let's go back to the poem, the ideas of racism, right? It's not done, right? And there's a conversation that happens, in our country now where there is, I'll give you well, I'm trying not to make this into a civics class, but it relates to what we're reading about. So I'll just take another minute and talk about it. I was speaking to someone who said they were upstate in another part of New York State, and that they were at a market, and they said that the person that was it's a conservative area, and the person had on their table a tip jar, and on it was a quote from Adolf Hitler on it. Now we know that Adolf Hitler, if you know history, had these ideas of white supremacy, of white people being better, specifically certain types of white people as well, and so we learned from history the damage that did, and also that just was a concept that's incorrect. You know what I mean? It's just an incorrect idea, right? But yeah, if you're somebody's trying to tell you you're smarter and you're stronger and you're because of your color, you want to keep that idea. So this person had that there, and it was so shocking to my friend. And she was like, I just like that, like right in the open. Whereas some place in New York where there may be more progression, they don't think that, but you would think that people know better, right? Like we've learned that those ideas of whatever these ideas people had about who Black people were and et cetera. Just look at the screen. Look who's on screen right now. God damn it, excuse my language, right? That's proof that all that stuff is wrong, right? That we could see it, we live it, right? But anyway, so that's what I mean, that sometimes these ideas are still there, and then there could be the mechanisms or systems of power could be used to try to reverse some of those ideas, right? So, so that's why vigilance and activity. And that's one of the things I love about poetry, is that poetry and art are constantly reflecting, questioning, and imagining who we are, right? Showing us the possibilities of who we can be, right? So that was that poem. The other poem we read in class that you all read together was Curly, and Curly was by Yoseli Castillo. And so let me read a little bit about Curly, and I'll talk about Curly, and then we'll talk about the last poem for this, that assignment and that experience. So Yoseli Castillo, as we mentioned, is Dominican American, and she wrote Curly, and the beginning of it, there is a quote from a song, and I'm not gonna do the quote from the song, but I'm gonna go right into the poem. She says, I'm going straight this week. I dread doing it. It's actually a waste of time, but it is something different. I do it once a year. I like the makeover. It is a change. It also makes mommy happy. She thinks she has a beautiful girl. And so in addition, one of the things we talked about with that poem was that, Yoseli Castillo was using hair as a metaphor for sexuality, right? That she was talking about the idea that, talking about hair and all these ideas of hair, straightening the hairs, doing a doobie, putting rolos, all those kinds of things. And it being straight or curly she was doing a parallel between being queer or straight, right? And we get some of those hints as you go along. And we talked about how that poem used a lot of imagery, and that poem, you could read it as a poem about hair, but then as we open it up and think about sexuality, we can see how that is an important part of what Yoseli was talking about in her poem. So so those were the two poems that we looked at. Some of you, liked it and said, "Can I do that? One of those instead?" I said, "Of course." Because the thing is, when you gotta write about something, right? If you gotta do an essay about something, why not do an essay about something that speaks to you, right? That's interesting, right? Other than trying to figure, forcing you to say you must do it on Sylvia Plath's Cinderella, which we didn't get to read her poem. Maybe I'll do it on Wednesday or on Monday next week, which is a wonderful poem, right? But it's also a poem that takes a little more work to unlock, right? And not that you cannot do it, you could do it, because I know that you have the capacity. We've been doing it for the last couple of weeks, reading poems, slowing down, repeating them, looking at the vocabulary and making sure that we understand them. And then the beauty of discussion, right, is that maybe somebody may have read the Yoselli poem and not gotten that metaphor, but then somebody brings up the metaphor and they're like, oh my God, yeah, I could see that now, right? So that's what discussion is, the beauty of discussion and sharing the ideas with other people, that sometimes somebody will bring up something. And that happens to me. Sometimes I've been doing these poems for years and somebody will say something in class and I'm like, oh my God, I've been reading that poem for decades and I never saw that, so that's the other thing that excites me about, literature and poetry. So the third poem that we have that we did not discuss yet was Don't Look at My Arms, right? And that one is by Danielle Mcgee. And so I want to see if there's anyone from that group that took notes and was ready to report the last time we were together. We have 21 people, right? So there's only 3 people absent from class today. And I know that Cesar is on the phone. So Cesar will be popping in and out. Oh no, Cesar is here, but is on the phone.
Which poem again?
Don't Look at My Arms by Danielle Mcgee. Did everybody get amnesia as well? You don't remember the poem? You were that group?
No, I did.
That's
I
not
wasn't
our
in that group.
that's not our group, Mabel.
Right.
Yeah, no.
Does anybody remember?
But I guess we could read it.
Hey, Professor. That was my group's poem.
Okay.
Like, I'm almost home, but I have the stuff. I'm ready to present. I'm just driving right now.
Oh, okay. So what I'll do is maybe I'll just read the poem to everyone, and then we could talk about it later, unless there's other folks in the group that want to do it. But I'll read the poem so at least the class will hear it. Okay. And I'll speak a little bit. So Danielle Mcgee is a poet. He also writes novels and I think he writes novels and poems. And he grew up in the West Coast in Los Angeles. Grew up in the West Coast in the 90s, I believe, when there were some pivotal moments of gang violence that was going on there. And so he grew up in an environment that was very much about, well, similar to the environment I grew up in. There were a lot of, drugs were an issue in the neighborhood, in the community, and gangs were an issue, and there was a lot of violence. And so when you're a young person living in that kind of situation, you are constantly trying to navigate, just how to survive and stay safe, right? And so a lot of Danielle's poems talk about that. This poem is one that I know is a very personal poem, and it's about his mother. And so I'm going to read it. I'll read the poem, but it's about Danielle's mom. And I'll disclose something a little later. Let's see. Yeah, and I'll share the screen while I'm reading it to you too. So I think we did that last class. I'm just trying to make it big on my screen before I share it with you all. Right. Share screen, and I'll read it. So, Don't Look at My Arms by Danielle Mcgee. And here's the poem. I sneak glances anyway, because I want to understand the crisscross needle marks resting on your cocoa butter flesh. I need to know what kind of pain you ran from back in the day because I feel it in my stomach too, boxing me in, and I can only find release on top of women who just pocketed my money that was pulled from a joint checking account. I'm here to hear about your journey from Nebraska to Oakland and on to Pacoima. Tell me, Ma, let me know. Did you smile often as a little girl? When was the first time your body was taken from you? What went through your veins when Ed and I were taken from you on that blue skied morning? I'm gonna stop there. So now that I've read it, if somebody else, I know Cesar is still making their way home. Is someone else from that group want to comment on it or have any thoughts, or what did you hear on the first read?
Hi, Professor.
Okay. Hi, Jacqueline.
Yes, from my understanding from this poem is that his mom went through something like she was traumatized or something like that,
Mhm.
you know. And he's just trying to figure out why, I guess, I don't know. Because it's like he knows her pain because he went through something similar.
Mhm. Yeah, he says that line, right? He goes, "Tell me about your pain because I feel it too," right? In my stomach, right? So he's saying that pain she had got transferred to him and he has a relationship to the pain that she has, right?
Yes, yes.
Shivani? Yeah.
I think the mom was an addict.
Mhm.
She used needles, and in a way it got transferred to him, maybe as a child, maybe, and I know that the kids were taken away from her because he says that in the last stanza.
Mhm.
And he's able to feel her pain. I guess they move around a lot because it's at different places or towns where they used to live, or states.
Yeah.
That's what I see from that.
Mhm. Yeah, there's a line. He's at the beginning. It says, "I want to understand the crisscross needle marks resting on your cocoa butter flesh," right? So, so they're talking about that. The drug abuse. So there was probably some drug use, right? The last stanza, the actual last stanza, he says, "What went through your veins when Ed and I were taken from you on that blue skied morning?" Right. So we know that the children were taken away from her, at least Ed and I. So we assume that Ed and he were brothers, and he's calling her ma, he's calling her mom, and he's saying Ed and I. So they were taken away.
I got like a sense of like a theme of abandonment, right? Like it was, you were reading it, and maybe it was the tone, professor, of your voice when you were reading it too. Like it made it really profound for me. Like, oof, this kid is hurt. He's talking about how he's coping with those abandonment issues from his experience, right? They moved around a lot, but that doesn't necessarily mean that mom was with them. So that's something that I just infer from that. And it's also like, sometimes even though you're not with your mom growing up, those ideas that you have in your mind of what it was when you were with her, you begin to like project those in your current life. And then he's like maybe struggling or battling something himself.
Yeah, and what he's battling, I'm going to read one line from it. The section that he says, "And I can only find release on top of women who just pocketed my money that was pulled from a joint checking account." Right. So what do you
It's
think
like a cycle of the same life that he lived as a child.
Right. So he's finding. Oh, go ahead, Gregory. Your hand is
Yeah,
up.
I mean, with the poem, I mean, definitely the mother was an addict, and
She used needles for her drugs, but also his pain. I don't know. I read it twice. It felt like his pain wasn't about drugs, but it was pain about other things in his life. And he was just trying to relate his pain with his mom pain. Like when he talks at the end, you know, what went through your veins when Ed and I were taken from you on that blue sky morning? You know, he's probably wondering, you know, what was her thought when she took that last drug and her life was taken away, because now he feels that he can't find answers to his own pain. I mean, that's how I read it.
Yeah, I mean, there's that you're all picking up on that big thing because it is about questioning, right? There's a lot of question marks, right? That he's asking, and that line that I read was saying that he could only find release on top of women who pocket the money that he's taken out of a joint bank account. So, what women is he talking about?
A woman that
His
he
partners.
found in the
Probably
street.
his partners, I would say.
Well, the
Yeah.
partner is a
he's
joint. The partner is a joint checking account, so we know that he has a joint checking account with somebody, but he's giving money to women that he's finding a release on top of. So those are what, prostitutes.
Prostitutes. That's
So
what
he
I
said
said.
he's-
Women's in the streets.
Yes. So he said he only finds release from prostitutes, and he pays for them from the joint checking account that he has with his wife or partner, right?
Yes.
So he's dealing with his own demons, right? Like, I mean, I don't know. That's not an
Yeah.
easy thing.
So like his
So-
mom used, his mom used drugs to relieve herself from pain, which he didn't know what type of pain she was going through.
Mhm.
And for him is abusing women. That was his only way to relieve the pain that he was feeling. And I guess all his whole childhood life. And
Mhm.
instead of turning to drugs, he turned to women.
So there's so Thelma, I don't know if you're able to speak because Thelma sent me a note saying they were in group 3 and they were
Yeah,
okay.
right now I'm on the ground. I don't know if you hear the train. I'm sorry.
Okay. So what we can do is before class is over, we can give Thelma and Cesar an opportunity to share any additional thoughts to what we've had. But the poem is strong. I mean, there's also like juxtaposition, right? The idea of when he says what not when excuse me, not what went through your brain, right? But what went through your veins, right? Is using containing the metaphor of drugs, right? There's something went through the veins, right? But blood flows through our veins as well, right? And our DNA, like what was going on with you that morning, he's that blue skied morning when Ed and I were taken away, right? And this juxtaposition of something that's blue skied is something that's supposed to be good, right? Like
Peaceful.
peaceful, right? And we know that, that gets interrupted, that peace gets interrupted by him being taken from the mom. So there was probably the conditions existed that she couldn't take care of them anymore. And they were taken from her,
But also it's a way of him telling her, it's like that was you didn't felt from your head or thought from your head, you felt from your brain. So that's his way of telling her, what did you feel from when that happened?
There's so much that we can pull from this poem, right? And if we look at it, it's so freaking short. But that's what happens with a lot of the poems, that they're small, but you slow down and you read them. And the poets say a lot with just a little bit of words, So so we're coming in for a landing with our section on poetry, right? And I would love to read like 10 more poems with you all, because I could do that like all semester. But we have to switch to fiction, and we will on starting, I believe, on Monday. We'll see. Yeah, Monday. We'll probably start to transition on Wednesday a little bit to fiction. So so I just want to go over the assignment, right? And then I want to talk about how to format your first page. Okay. So if we go back, let me share the screen. And I'm in Blackboard, and let me go to course content. Okay, so if we go to course content and we go to the handouts, This is writing an essay. It's the handout that we've reviewed for the last couple of weeks now. We go back and forth to it. So on it as well is, toward the end of it, before it gives you an example of one, is the assignment. So we have a new date now. It's not September 29th anymore. It'll be whatever date that is. I'll tell you guys. It'll be October 3rd. Okay. So by October 3rd, you're going to ask to select one poem. Some of you could either build on the poem that you did with for your exercise, or pick a new poem, right, from the poetry packet, or any poems that we've read together, or that are in the handout, this handout, or that are in the Elements of Poetry handout. So any of those poems, right? And then you're gonna write a essay that identifies and illustrates the poetic terms explored in our class and our readings, right? So there include subject, theme, sound, imagery, rhyming schemes, metaphors, similes, a type of poem, meaning a closed form, among others. So you're not limited to this list, but this is giving a list to you in case you're figuring out what are poetic forms, what is a professor talking about? That's what I'm talking about, these terms, right? Subject, theme, imagery, sound, rhyming schemes. So you're asked to pick a poem, right? And then you can explore, I'm saying at least 3 things, right? So that you can construct a 5-paragraph essay, 3 poetic terms from them. And you can do more terms. You can do, 5, 6 different terms to make your essay nice and strong, but you have to do at least 3, right? And the paragraph, you should be 3 to 4 pages. It should be double spaced with a 1-inch margin and 12 points Times Roman or Arial, and use the MLA structure for the first page of the essay. So so those instructions are there. I will copy and paste them into an email and send that to you, so you have it for Sunday. So you have it, you can begin it for Sunday. And I'm going to show you now what I mean by formatting the first page of your essay. So I'm going to screen share again and go back to that same area. And this part, back to course content. And then here's the formatting the first page of your MLA sample. Now I remember this because in one of our previous classes, Joanny, I think, said the second page is blurred, and they are right, it is blurred. But I want you to see the format of it. So basically, if you look at this handout, right, I'm going to zoom into this image. This is talking about like a snapshot of that first page with some instructions. So the first page of every paper from today on, every assignment that you will do for this class, the rest of this class, should have this format on it, right? Even if you're writing a paragraph, if you're writing a reflection, whatever you're writing, you're just going to have this first page will be formatted this way. So on the upper left-hand corner is your name, followed by the professor's name, followed by the class, followed by the date. Okay, so that's this section here. Then on the upper right hand is your last name with the page number, right? And then it's every essay should have a title that is centered, and then the essay begins after that. Okay, so the general guidelines, you're going to type your paper on a computer if required, print it out in the in-person world, right? Everything's electronic, so you're going to upload it. You're going to double space the text of your paper and use a legible font, and Times Roman or Arial are the 2 that we suggest. And you're going to make it 12 point. This is all info, and I'm going to do it live. So leave only 1 space after periods or other punctuation marks unless otherwise prompted by your instructor. Set the margins of your document to 1 inch on all sides. Indent the first line of each paragraph 1/2 inch from the margin, left margin. MLA recommends that you use the tab key as opposed to pushing the space bar 5 times. Create a header that numbers all the pages consecutively in the upper right-hand corner, 1/2 inch from the top and flush with the right margin. So that means this thing, this is the header, right? It's flush with the right margin. This is the left margin, and the right margin is here, right? That's the edge of the page of the margin here. The edge of the page is that, but it's an inch in, and this is the same thing on this side, right? So do not take make a title page for your paper unless specifically requested. That means not another page on top of this page with the title and your name and the date, nothing like that. In the upper left hand of the first page, then I just went through that, you list all that stuff. You double space and put the center, the title underneath it that's centered. Do not underline, italicize, make it bold, nothing to your title, right? Unless your title includes the title of something, and then you have to put the right punctuation for that. Okay. Use quotation marks or italics when referring to other works in your title. So if you have a poem, you would put quotation marks, you know, here's like an example of that. Double space between the line and the title of the first text. Create a header in the upper right-hand corner. I mentioned all of that stuff, okay? So this is what it should look like, not blurry, it should look clear. So what you should see without all the markings of this little piece here, what you should see is this. When I look at your page, I should see your name, Professor C. Rice-Gonzalez, English 100-7409A, and then the date. And then your last name with the page number, a title, and then the essay begins. The first paragraph is indented. The next paragraph is indented. The spacing is even between all of the lines, double spaced. And you can see every time there's an indentation here, in this case, there is the beginning of a new paragraph, right? So that's what it should physically look like. Now, there are two ways in which you can set this up. And one of them, you know, I've been talking, you could use Google Docs, right? So I'm going to open up a file in Google Docs, a new document, right? And I'm going to begin formatting it, right? So here's my blank page. So first, I know this in Google Docs, that Google Docs, going to be slow down. That Google Docs, there's a page setup is in the file. So I'm going to go to the first, I'm going to check the page setup to make sure my margins are even. And automatically it makes it at 1 inch, but there it is. It's all set up at 1 inch. So I know I'm good to begin. And then I'm going to begin, right? So I'm going to pick a name. So the student's name is Christopher Moss. He is a professor. Rice-Gonzalez. It is English 100-409A. And today's date is, you could do it, usually type it out, September 27th, 2021, right? So if I look at this, I said, the professor said this has to be either Times Roman or Arial. So let me check my font and set that up. And it is already in Arial, cool. And there should be 12 points. And see up here, I'm gonna make it 12. Now it's 12 point. The other thing the professor told me that I have to make it double spaced. So now I'm gonna go here and make sure that all my text is double spaced. And this one, I do format, line spacing. I'm gonna pick double. And now it automatically did double space for me. Now I'm gonna hit tab, and the title of my essay is How Castillo uses metaphor in her poem right? So I have a title. Professor said it has to be centered, so I'm going to center the title, right? And I use the center thing up here, right? And then I'm going to begin and then let me just get some text from somewhere. I just need text, so it doesn't matter. Then I begin typing my text, right? Right. So this text, of course, should not be centered. It should be on the left margin, right? I'm going to indent my first paragraph. So I got to do the tab key. And let's pretend this is another paragraph here. It did it automatically. Okay. Now, the only thing missing from this page is the header, right? So in Google Docs, you can put insert. You could say page number. And then you could pick where you want the page number to go. This is every page numbered here. So I'm going to click that one. And now it automatically puts it up there. I'm going to click in front of the number so I can put my last name, which is not mine, but the student, right? And I just said that because I made the student's name Christopher Moss. C is Moss. So everything has to be 12 point and RAL. So sometimes these things come up some other font. So I'm gonna highlight it and make sure it's 12 point. Now it's same as everybody else. I'm gonna admit Cesar. Okay. So now this is what the first page looks like. Now, if I just took this and I keep typing my paper, right? And I do paragraph, I paste. And so now if you look as it goes to the second page, by putting it in the header, it automatically does it, right? So if folks having connection issues, popping in and out. So if you're typing your paper, you see it automatically goes there, right? If I keep typing my paper, type, right? Page 3. So it automatically keep putting it in there. The spacing stays the same. And this is what, this is what it looks like, right? So if you're using Google Docs, this is the way you can do it. If you're using Word, which is the other program that I recommend, right? I'm going to do File. I'm going to start my new document. It's a blank document. Okay. And so in Word, I'm just going to move this down here. Oh, Mabel, my bad. Yes.
I have a question. So I noticed you often do Google Docs. Can we share the document with you, or should we just post it?
I will answer that question in a moment.
Okay.
Could you remind me after I show you how to do this in Word, how to
Okay.
what you're asking? Okay, because that's important what you're asking. So in Word, you open it up, you have a blank document, and sometimes it's just knowing because I use these programs a lot, so I know it. But every program, and there used to be so many more. There used to be WordPerfect. There was all kinds of programs you could use to do word processing, but Word has kind of dominated. Now Google Docs is trying to like pick it out of the water because it's free and part of the platform, but it doesn't do as much as Word can. But in Word, instead of going to File for the layout, I know I go to Layout, right? So I'm going to go to Layout up here, and I'm going to go to Margins, and I'm going to make sure that my margins are all 1 inch. So they're 1 inch margins. I don't know where this came from. Yeah, that is wild. I don't know where those blue lines came from. So, so here I could do the same thing, right? I could begin typing my paper, right? So at the top, my name is Christopher Moss. I'm in Professor Rice-Gonzalez's class. That class is English 100. Let me make it, I'm going to zoom in and make it bigger in case other folks can. Okay, so English 100, 409A, and today is September 7th, 2021. Now, I'm going to check my line spacing because my professor said it has to be double spaced. So I'm going to highlight this. And I know this for myself that you can either go to design, I believe. No, no, it's layout. You go to layout and you go to paragraph. But I know I can just right click it and go to paragraph. And then here it says multiple, so it's not double. So I'm going to double space it. And this is telling me there's spacing before and after my paragraphs, but I don't want any spacing. I just want it to be my double space. So I'm going to hit 0. If you don't do this part, it's not the end of the world, but it won't be evenly spaced. But right, so now, boom, it shifted it, right? And Thelma's been in and out of this waiting room all day. So then I'm going to, I copied it from the Google, I'm going to hit paste. All right, so I'm making sure all of this is Arial. Home. It's not, it's a different font, so I'm going to make it Arial. And I'm going to do it, I'm going to do Times Roman instead this time. I use a different one. And then I make sure it's all 12 point. So everything is cool. Everything looks double spaced. And then here I need the title, right? And the title I had in Google Docs. How Castillo uses metaphor and curly. I'm going to copy it and bring it over to this document because my essay needs a title. I'm going to paste it. Okay, I'm going to close this out for a minute. And I got to center it now because titles get centered, and Word has these little things where it moves it in the center. If it had to be to the right, and move it to the right, back to the center, to the left, but this is the center, right? And this is the first paragraph, so I'm going to indent it, right? Here's another paragraph, I'm going to indent it. There's another one, I'm going to indent it, and it goes to there, right? So if I look at my formatting, what is missing is the header up here, the page. So I know also in Word, as in Google Docs, is insert, and then here we go, page number, right, is over here. Then I'm going to click it, and it tells you top of the page, bottom, where do you want your and I'm the top, because we know that for this one it goes to the top, and then when I go to the top, it gives you even different positions of where to put it. And I know it's going to be to the right. There's more options, but a very simple one up to the right. You click it and it automatically puts it in the head. So I'm going to click it in front of the number, right? So I can click there, and then I'm going to write my name, Moss, right, as a student. And then I'm going to check the font so that it matches the other font. This is, I'm using Times Roman, so I didn't put it in that. So I'm going to change it to Times Roman. And I'm going to make sure that the point size is also 12, so that matches, right? And you can set your page up this way, or you can do it at the end when you finish typing it, but you can, so that you have all the information. If you look at it, let me make it smaller so that we can see the full page. Okay, so now we can look at the full page, and we see it's formatted with the student's name, the professor's name, the class, the date. It's on the left margin. We have our title nicely centered, right? This is indenting to begin the first paragraph. The spacing between this heading part and the sentence is the same. There's not extra space, right? So there's not like a space like this and another space like this, and your title's floating in the middle of the space. No, it's just no space. That, you know, evenly just double space from each one, right? And the page number's there. And if we did it in the header, we can scroll down and see that automatically it's there. If we did it, if we do it again, right? Right, as the pages keep going, the page numbers keep going, automatically get put in. So you don't have to worry about spacing. Your spacing stays the same. You have the 1-inch margin all around your papers, and you're ready to go. So Mabel asked something about, so if you do these, if you do your essay like this, right? Most likely in Word, what I do is I do something called track changes, and that's in review. And so this is something called track changes, and I turn this on, right? So now when I respond to you, you should see it. So like, let's say, you know, maybe the title looks fine. Let's see. You know, I'm just going to say, let's say this line is incorrect and I want to take it out. I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to hit delete, right? And you're going to see it. You're going to see it crossed out, but it's going to still be there. And then I might highlight this line and write a little note to you, a comment. I might say, this line is not necessary, right? So I'm going to say that, or I might write something like, this is not spelled correctly, right? And then that'll be it, right? And maybe here, there's a space. So I might hit that and the little red mark shows up there. So when you get your paper, you know, every correction I make, you should be able to see, and that's in tracking changes, right? So, so when you get your paper back, let me do another view so you can see, right? So you get to see when you get your paper back, it'll look like that. There'll be comments here, and this is how it looks in Word, right? I'm going to copy the same way I'll download it, I'll make my changes, I'll send it back as an attachment. Now, if you go to Google Docs, right? So if you happen to be using Google Docs has the same feature in terms of editing. So up in the right-hand corner, there's something called editing, or there's something called suggesting. The suggesting is what I turn on so that if I want to do the same thing, like take this line out, right? And I hit delete, similar thing. It says I deleted it, right? And I might write you a comment in there. This line is not, let's say, repetitive, right? So then I'll tell you what it is. And you can write me a note back. Oh, professor, I meant it to be repetitive, or, oh, thank you, whatever. And then if you make changes here, you know, this is not a capital, it's a lowercase. Same thing, this is not a capital, delete, lowercase. So then once you've done, once I've done all these changes to it, yours will start looking like this, a similar version of it, right? It'll have the text and it'll have my corrections. And even if you just go to it, you say, wait, I don't understand what this is. There's too many, you click it. And when you click it, it shows you which one it is. You notice how everything just moved. If I click it back, that's what it is. But if I click, like here, this correction, I was like, what is that? It'll just say the L with an L. Like I took the L out and I replaced it with a lower L. So this is one of the things that you can do in terms of the conversation we're having back and forth, this is what it would look like. Now, the other question is, Mabel said, how can you get this to me? Can you upload it? And so the question is yes. I'm in Google Docs right now. I'm going to give Google Doc a thing. He called it my name, right? So there's a couple things. There's a share feature, right? Where you want to share the link. So right now, and the way Google Docs work is you have to be in Google Docs, etc. So you can share, and this is what I do with many of you. I could either put your name here, right? And there's a bunch of people that I know, but you can put somebody's name there and then send it to them and it'll share that document with them. And that means they should be able to open it, whether they have Word or not. Another way to share it, which is I sometimes do with many of you, is I change it, right? Instead of here, I do change to anyone with a link. So that happened really fast. Okay, to anyone with a link. And then if I copy the link, now when I copy that link and I send it in an email or attach it onto Blackboard, the professor can, let me just at the bottom of the page, just right click the link so you can see it. So once you copy it, you paste it, and then it copies the link. And so that link will lead anybody who has it, as long as you change that setting. I want to show you something else you can do with Google Docs, right? With Google Docs, you could save this document. It's once you create a Google Doc, it lives in your Google Docs, right? But you could also save it as a different in a different way. You can download it. So you can download it as a Microsoft Word document, right? So if I hit that, it's going to do it like it's going to do that to it. Or you can download it as a PDF sometimes. That might be something someone asks you to put it in a PDF. It can do that. And so what it does, I don't think it's the problem with this, it doesn't save the changes, any changes I made. But I'm going to open it up in a Word document. So now the Word document is opening because I clicked it. And oh, it did it. Okay, so here it is. It opened it as a Word document, right? The Google Doc. Or the other way I asked it to do to save, I'm going to bring this smaller, right? The other way I saved it was as a Google Doc. And I know it saves it to my downloads automatically, right? So I'm going to open it. Now I said it save it. So save it as a Word doc and in a Google Doc. And I'm going to open it as a PDF. I think it's PDF, doesn't save it. Yeah, so now it opened it as a PDF, right? And here it is as a PDF.
So it's okay for us to, when we complete our paper, to share it as a Google Doc, or I guess that's what I'm asking. Would you
Yes.
prefer shared, or is posting it on Blackboard like important for like grading purposes?
Yeah, no, I think you should put it on Blackboard. So what I'm showing you is how to, if you work on Google Doc, that you have to be able to say either you have to put my name as a share, or you have to change it to say anyone with the link, right? So that means
Also give you the access.
Right, so that way I automatically have the access to do it if using Google Doc. But the other thing you could do with Google Doc is you could save it as a Word document and attach it as an attachment. So you can do that as well. So you have a couple of options on how to do that. Okay. So I know that was a lot, and this class is being recorded. So you could, so I'll put it up online probably tomorrow or by Wednesday, and you could see what I just did again. But I wanted to do it live with all of you, not just do a handout and read it and show you an example, so that we could, so that you could have the opportunity to see how to format the first page, and those things. I think sometimes students try to write the page number in there and try to write it on every page, and the formatting gets thrown off, particularly if you do revisions. So that's the way to do it. Cesar, do you have your hand up?
Yes, Professor. I'm sorry. I kind of I know you was talking about when is the essay gonna be due, but I kind of missed that part a little bit.
Okay, that's all right. It's going to be due on Sunday instead of Wednesday. Originally, it was going to be due this Wednesday at 11:59, but instead it's going to be due on Sunday. So you just have a few more days, just so that we could have done this today. We could ask any questions. You could hear the last poem that we all talked together about, and you have any questions that we have, Wednesday to come together and ask any before you submit your first formal grade. You've done lots of assignments, but this is the first formal one.
Okay.
Yes, so Mabel, it's between 3. It could be between 3 and 5 pages the most, but 3 or 4, I think I said 3 to 4 pages. Cesar, you were speaking.
Oh yeah, and then second, what was it? I should have wrote it down. It completely left my mind, Professor. I'm sorry.
All right. We have 10 more minutes or 9.
Oh, okay. So
in the
if
9 minutes,
I got you.
Okay, perfect. Who's next? Oh, Magdalene.
Yes, Professor, I have a question.
Sure.
I see that you haven't graded the last the thesis statement that I sent and the first paragraph.
Yeah, the paragraph. I did all the thesis statements. So if I skipped yours, I'll take a look. But I did all the thesis statements. Any of them went.
Yep.
Say it again.
I believe I'm gonna use the one that I worked already.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, no, that's why I tried to get to everybody's today, at least a thesis statement. I'm gonna work backwards. So I did all the thesis statements, and I'm gonna go back and make sure I do that. I know my Belle had uploaded something, and I saw that it was there, but it wasn't, but I hadn't commented it on it. So
Excuse me, Professor.
Right, thank you.
Okay, 1 second, Dylan. Okay, Magdalene. All right, go ahead, Dylan.
Quick question. Can I still submit the thesis statement?
Yes, you should. You should. I mean, I'm
Okay,
gonna.
perfect.
That's what I mean. You know, Johnny was like, "You need a glass of wine." I'm like, "Yeah, Johnny. I'm gonna like first I gotta eat something, and then I gotta do some more
Definitely.
grading. I gotta do more grading. So that all that's later. You don't want me. You don't want me grading while having wine. That's like not the move.
Oh, maybe I do. Maybe I do. Maybe I
you do, Dylan.
Maybe I
Right?
do.
No. Yeah, no. I'm a lightweight. I get very sleepy, so it has to be
Me
before
too.
I'm done.
Also,
1 second,
Professor,
let me just- Sure. No, it doesn't. I hear you.
last week I was in the class, but I was on a train and my phone completely died, so it kicked me out of the class. So
Oh, okay.
when you were trying to do the groups, I wasn't able to make that group.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So there's So I'm just checking the questions in the chat. That's the. That's so funny. Erica says eggplant's what she's cooking for dinner. There's a whole nother. There's a whole other conversation happening there. Yes. Okay. So before we break, I know that Thelma and Cessa were having a couple issues, and we talked a lot about the poem and the group that we're in. But I want to give them a chance to share anything that we may not have said or something they want to add.
Yeah, sure. So I put like a theme is when the I didn't write the poet's name, I'm sorry. It says pocket his money, took advantage, when he quotes that, I'm quoting that. And he said, I felt like the person was abusing him and his money for using drugs when he says the veins. Like they gave me an image of, needles and yeah. And then my second one was smiling on them, like when he said it in his voice, you smiling off them and was the first time you were abused. He was talking, like I said, he was talking to her. He was using his voice, like it was projecting it. But yeah, that's. And then I put this symbolism is like a kid talking to his mother.
What would be symbolic about that?
I just want to add something. I'm still on the train, but what's symbolic about it is that he went through as a child was abuse. So he wanted to know what was abuse. His mother was going through abuse, and he wanted to know exactly what was she was
How
going
she
through
was
at that
feeling.
time. What was she was suffering? Yeah.
So I want you. The reason why I ask is that I think both of you are explaining aspects of the poem or ideas inside of the poem or activity inside the poem. But remember, when you speak with symbolism, you have to be able to identify that this is something and this symbolizes something else, right? Like, the rose that grew from concrete, the Tupac Shakur, right? That the rose symbolizes like a person, right? So he's talking about a rose, but he's really talking about a person, right? So when we talk about symbolism, we have to think about that, right? Like, what is something represents something else, right?
Can I say like?
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I go after.
I was gonna say it is kind of symbolic because the relationship that he's describing, like the way he's communicating with his mother, is just as toxic as his relationship with other women. Just like her relationship with drugs was toxic to the way she was, to her opportunity to upbring her kids.
Right. So what you're talking about is also like the way in which he uses pain as a symbol, right, for who they are, like, right, for their struggles. Like the mother's is drugs and his is, it's literally, I could tell you, the ladies, right, and it almost it's almost its own kind of addiction, right? People have heard of sex addiction, right? And sex addiction.
That's exactly what I thought. I was like, he's addicted to sex. Oh man, that's maybe because of that love that he yearned for too. It's just like this is his way of remedying that yearning.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of parallels in this poem. Like he does a parallel between him and his mother, and and their lives. And he literally says it that I feel your pain boxing me in, right? What is it? And he's asking her questions because he wants to get to know her pain so he can try to understand his own. Right? He's trying to unravel, answer the questions that live with him. So, it's a poem. I think I may have mentioned it. If I didn't mention it before, there's a very famous prize for poems called the Pushcart Prize. And this poem won a Pushcart Prize for poetry. So it is that. Okay. So, all right. So I think that'll be it for us for today. We're almost out of time. Yeah, we're at 2 minutes left to class. So I'm going to stay on and I'll be here for questions. And otherwise, we will continue on Wednesday. But at this point, you should know, if you don't, you can know that you're either going to build on one of the assignments to make it a full essay. I'm asking you to do a little bit of an exercise with that, and that's write a conclusion for it, right? And try to begin constructing that. I will send an email. You know what, I'll do that. I'll make it like that could be like an extra credit assignment. So if you want to do it by tomorrow night, it'll be an extra credit assignment to take the paragraphs, the thesis statement, make an intro and a conclusion, and I'll do that. So I'm going to write a note to send everybody a note right after class, an email about that. I just lost my pen. I think I told you I'm in my office now. I created an office at home, and that's where I've been this class and last class. Okay, so I'm just going to stay on. The rest of you, if you're done, go have your eggplant or whatever it is you're having for dinner tonight. I'm going to eat leftover Indian food just because we're sharing those things that have in the refrigerator. And but I'll stay on here answering questions. I know Dylan had a question, and I think Johali has a question, and whoever else has a question. All right. For everyone else, if you're good, then I'll see you on Wednesday. Have a great night.
See you Wednesday, Professor. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Have a good night.
Hi, Professor. What?
Good night, everyone.
I have a question. I
About
mean,
the extra
Professor.
credit?
Yeah, just one at a time, and let people finish saying good night.
Okay.
Good night.
Because I have Adama, I have Dylan. I think Dylan was first, Adama. Okay.
Mhm.
It wasn't really a question. I just wanted to comment on the Tupac Shakur poem. I think
which one?
The Rose That Grew from Concrete. When I wrote about it, the rose symbolized the positive stuff that could grow out of something that you wouldn't believe. So it's like the concrete stuff is not supposed to grow out the concrete, but the flower, like I said, symbolizes the beauty in the dark. And that was just my opinion on it.
Yeah, no, you're right on with that. I mean, that poem, if we didn't read it, maybe I'll read it on Wednesday. Remind me, and I'll read it on Wednesday.
Okay.
That poem is like this big, right? The poem is tiny, right? But it is a poem that is working, just as all the poems, right? Work really hard. So you're right. The rose symbolizes like, the beauty, right? Right. It symbolizes the perseverance, right? Because if something
the impossible kind of
the impossible, right?
Yeah.
I think it says, did you hear about the rose that grew from concrete and learned to walk without having feet? Right? You know what I mean? So you're like, whoa. So he's playing with metaphor, he's playing with symbolism, but he's playing with I'm forgetting the word when you make something human. I'm forgetting the word because I literally have been sitting in this chair the whole day. I've even eaten my lunch at this chair. So I have
definitely need some wine.
Yeah. I also do yoga. So I'm going to lay on my yoga mat and stretch out a little bit too. But I'm just all that. We'll read it together, but it's just a poem that rose symbolizes so much, right? And if you think of a rose, right, a rose is beautiful, but what is also a rose? It's thorny, right? It has thorns. So
I didn't even think that way either. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So there's a lot with that poem.
All right, Professor, have a good night.
All right, take care, Dylan.
Okay, Professor. I was asking about the extra credit. What are you saying about that for tomorrow?
Yes, I'll send an email, but I'll do it and I'll tell you how much it's worth. Okay. So
Okay.
that way. Yeah, I just feel like people have a lot they want to start working on. I don't want to make add the assignment to it, but if people, I think it'll be good for folks to do. You've basically done an essay in pieces, right? That's what your assignment has done. It has taken, like, you've written the body, you've written a thesis, we've talked about an introduction. What's left is a conclusion, right? But so I think it would be a good exercise if folks could do it, and if you could do it by tomorrow, that'd be great. So we can talk about it on Wednesday. And that way, even if like a handful of you do it, we can share it in class and we could see how something got put together. And then we can, and that way you'll be ready. I think you're ready now, but I think you'll be ready to do your essay.
Él no te ve, mira.
English is still my problem.
Mm-hmm.
I want not to lose the extra credit.
Right. No, that's fine. Yeah. All right. But yeah, I'll send an email tonight before my wine. I'll have the email tonight. So you guys.
Okay, Professor, have a good night.
All right, take care.
Bye, everyone.
All right, Thelma's next, and then
Good night.
Gregory, did you have a question?
Good night.
I'll let Thelma go first.
Thelma.
Okay, thank you. So I have a question. So every time I read a poem, it's like I could break down the meaning, but it's hard for me to know, like, when I know what's a metaphor, imagery, some symbolic. I'm having a little bit of problems with that. It's just, how can I explain it? How would I know exactly the exact words to say when it comes to like reading a poem and I want to say, oh, the how can I say, the poetic theme? How can you say? I'm sorry.
Poetic terms.
Poetic theme. Yeah, I want to be able to like know how to exactly say, and I don't want to say something incorrect. I want to say it the right way.
So the first thing, that's why very often when I say, when you construct your body paragraph, right? Let's say you're doing a body paragraph on symbolism, right? And you may say something like, in Pablo Neruda, he uses the symbol of a queen. A symbol is when something represents something else, right? And I sometimes very often say you should put in the definition. Imagery means when you use the five senses to bring a poem to life. A metaphor is when you compare something using that something that is, right? If you're using a simile is when you make a comparison using the word like or as, right? So first of all, it's important for you to be clear on what the definition of the poetic term is, right? And sometimes some are easier rather than others, right? If something rhymes, we understand what rhyming means, right? But if you could do, oh my goodness, I'm gonna make myself crazy trying to remember what it means to put feet on a freaking rose. But what the phrase is. But let's say if you're using alliteration, right? Or you're using any of the things that you're clear on what the definition of it is, because then, and the way you kind of check yourself is that then you use an example from the text, right? So if you say this is a symbol, right? If you're saying that the symbol of the queen, you say here's an example from the text, the quote, right? And it says, Neruda says, Tupac says, something, Shakur says rather, that, and you use the quote, and then you explain how that quote is an example of a symbol, right? So there's a rhythm to each paragraph. So the answer to your question, or the beginning of the answer to the question, Thelma, is that you, first of all, just be grounded on what the poetic term you're using is, right? If you say this is a theme, the theme is the main idea of the poem. Here is the main idea, and here's an example from the text why that is the main idea. So all of your things should reinforce each other inside of that body paragraph.
Okay.
Was that helpful? Okay.
Yeah, it is. And I usually go to like tutoring, the writing center online. So they also help me a lot, even though I'm good with my writing, but it's just the poems. Like it has so many meanings, and I wanna be able to say,
just pick
this poem symbolizes this. I want to be able to write like that.
All right. Well, it sounds like the beginnings, you have the desire. If you have the desire to want to write like that, I'm giving you the tools, and then now you're going to put the desire and the tools together. and let's see what happens. That's what actually doing the assignment does, right? Because then afterward you can use, because I have the faith that every student does it with the intention of doing it the way they understand it and doing the best they can. And then sometimes that's right, and sometimes it may not be. And then that's where we have the conversations. You could say, oh, I thought I was doing this, and you're telling me that this is it. And then that's the place where you and I have to be able to find the place that we understand each other.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night. Gregory.
Hi, Professor, I just want to make sure that the essay that I did with the theme and the element, is that the one that I can use for the essay? And I just have to add the introduction and the conclusion, correct?
And you have to add one more element because we're asking it to be a 5-paragraph essay. So if you have a theme and that, then you have to find another poetic element to talk about.
Okay, great. Okay. And I just wanted to confirm if you saw the last 2 assignments, because it's weird when I go into discussion, it's not highlighted where it says post or something. So
I saw them. If you look at yours, like the thesis one, I responded to everybody. There was 17 people that did the thesis one, and I got through all 17 of them today. Amongst everything else I did today, I got through those 17. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to work backward, and I'm going to see the assignment before that, and I'm going to comment on that, and I'm going to keep working back until I've commented on everything from your class.
Great. All right. Okay. All right. Those are the 2 questions I have. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night, Gregory.
Good night.
Hi, Professor.
Yes.
This is Tadian Mihami. That was Wednesday. I had a connection problem, so I was logging and I couldn't stay in the class because of connection.
Oh yeah, I know some people were having that problem today. I noticed.
Yeah.
So, but you know what I do? We record the class and then we put it on. So you can, if you need to, you can go look at that. Like today's a class that, I did some instruction. So some students can go back to it today to like, how did he format that page? What did he say on Word? And then
the word stuff. And sometimes you don't have your email on Blackboard. Like I was looking.
On mine?
Yeah, your email.
Yeah, just make sure, look at the syllabus, because at the top of the syllabus, all of my information is there.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Professor.
Thank you.
Padme. You're welcome.
Wait, I
have a question.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going yet. I think, Johnny, do you want to ask a question now, or you?
I have an appointment for tutoring for bio at 7. So
ask your question.
I did my part of it of Curly, and I had told you that I wanted to share it with you.
Okay.
And you said to share it with you today. So how can I do this?
Just email it to me.
Okay. Yeah. It's not completed.
I
only did symbolism on it. I feel that it has a lot of symbols in it. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And metaphor and symbolism, I feel that they are very close to each other.
They are.
So it's like, how can I know differentiate either one?
Well, that just again, make sure there's the definition, right? And the
definition, and it's there because I put it.
Yeah. So make sure that's that, that you're saying like, it's interesting because metaphors are symbols, but not all symbols are metaphors.
Yes.
Right? So that is
I believe it or not, I've been searching about it and I looked through the internet because I like to, before talking about something, I like to research and see what I'm going to say, if it's correct, if it's not correct, and inform myself so I can say things right. And that's exactly what I found. I found that metaphors can be symbols, but not every symbol is a metaphor. And so, or vice versa. Yeah. Okay, so I'll email it. Thank you.
All
So
right, I'll take a look.
how soon will you be able to tell me if I'm going on the right track?
Yeah, I would say by like tomorrow by noon.
Yeah, I know you have a lot of things to do, so I don't.
Yeah, no, that's
Thank
cool. By tomorrow at noon, I take a look at it.
Okay, thank you, Professor. You have a good
All
night.
right. Have a
Good
good
night,
bio.
everyone.
All right.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Did you have a question, Cesar?
Yes, Professor. So it's about the you saw my thesis, correct?
Yes. Let's see. Hold on. Let me get it. I could look at it now.
Because I just wanted to know, like, because I wanted to see if those 2 paragraphs that I did are good to put in my essay.
Okay, so first let me look at your thesis. And what did I say?
Oh God, I didn't even know. I checked it last night.
Yeah, no, I did it today. So in the thesis statement, it says it's good, but there's some edits. The edits that I put in are, yeah, so let me, can you see it? I can share my screen. What?
No, I
What's the
can't
matter?
see it.
No, let me
Oh,
share.
so I don't know.
If I share my screen, will you be able to see it?
Yeah.
Okay, so here it is. So I wrote good, but see my edits, right? I just said you have Elizabeth Bishop in the poem Letter to New York demonstrates. I put demonstrates 3 poetic elements, which are theme, imagery, and irony. So I just streamlined it a little bit. You said are composed of 3 poetic elements, which are theme, imagery, and irony. So that is, but it's the idea and the concept and the structure is there. It's just needed a little bit of grammar, and I just fixed, put quotation marks and all that stuff for you to look at it. But
Okay.
yeah, so it's a good thesis statement, and I'm gonna stop sharing because I know what you're gonna talk about are theme, imagery, and I forgot what the third one was. You're gonna talk about those 3 things.
Yes.
So you're on the right track. I'm gonna look at the other paragraphs now. That's what I'm gonna do tonight and tomorrow. Tonight and tomorrow morning, I'm gonna do all the grading for the rest of your class. So that way you guys will have all my feedback before Wednesday. So that way you'll have, feedback, info, and you're ready to have all the elements to do your essay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Professor.
Okay.
Have a good night. Thank you.
You too. Take care.